Kicking off with this list, Mean Girls 2. Now, it should be no secret that most of you already know how much I adore the original Mean Girls. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's a cult classic. It's had a huge pop culture influence since its release back in 2004. It has memorable characters, memorable quotes, great themes, so on and so forth. Mean Girls 2, on the other hand, holy shit, this movie is a steaming pile of dog shit. When I heard that it took 3 weeks to make this movie, it just makes so much sense of how unbearably bad it is. Like, I literally mean everything about this movie is so unbearably bad. The writing was jank, the acting is terrible, the plot has no real redemption arc, and every single one of the characters absolutely suck because either they come up to be obnoxious, spoiled, annoying, or just very unlikable, including the main character, which is absurd because every main character in a movie should always be interesting, and she's just not because she's just so bland. I'll never forget the first time watching this and just cringing throughout the whole entire time because it just comes across as a major cringe fest. Honestly, it doesn't even feel like a sequel to Mean Girls. It just comes across as a generic-ass PG-13 version of a Disney Channel original movie. But all I'm trying to say is Mean Girls 2 absolutely sucks donkey testicles, and I suggest that everybody should stay away from this film as far away as they can because it is god-awful. But anyways, let's just move on to something else. For the next movie, I have X-Men Dark Phoenix. Well, sure, there are some other bad movies in the X-Men franchise like X-Men The Last Stand or X-Men Origins Wolverine, but at least those two movies for me have that typical it's so bad it's good quality that everything about Dark Phoenix just lacks. As a matter of fact, X-Men Dark Phoenix to me is the prime example of how you end a long-running film franchise in probably the most pathetic way possible. Apparently, this movie was trying to make up for how the Dark Phoenix storyline was completely butchered in The Last Stand, but instead, it just ends up being so much worse. The entire plot of the movie just felt so rushed. The emotional tension was very lackluster. 90% of the characters are just nothing but cannon fodder because either they get underutilized or they just get completely sidelined. The villain played by Jessica Chastain was so lame. And don't even get me started about the writing because then we have very stupid lines like this.
It's funny. I can't actually remember the last time you were the one risking something. And by the way, the women are always saving the men around here. You might want to think about changing the name to X-Women.
Oh yeah, and I can't forget to mention the fact that they completely spoiled Mystique's death in the trailers, which is like one of the most annoying thing about movie trailers nowadays is that they always keep spoiling everything. And to be honest, when she died, I really didn't give a shit at all. I really didn't because it seems like Jennifer Lawrence was just there for a paycheck because everybody knew that she was tired of playing Mystique. So when she died, I was actually kind of happy because she was just so dull. I just really wish the Fox X-Men movie franchise would have ended with Logan. That way the entire franchise would have gone out on a satisfying high note rather than ending it in Dark Phoenix with a miserable whimper and also leaving a foul taste in my mouth. Next, I have Thor: The Dark World. I mean, what can I say about Thor: The Dark World that hasn't already been said already? Not only is it the most boring MCU movie, it's probably like the most boring movie I've ever seen. I literally can't get through this entire movie without trying to fall asleep because it's just nothing but a massive snooze fest. I couldn't really name anything. I can't even really name anything that I like about this movie because everything was just so dull. From the storyline, the characters, even having a very shitty villain in Malekith. I remember how people used to always complain about the MCU having shitty villains. Well, Malekith is the prime example of that because he just came off to be one note and that he just wants to bring darkness with having no real motivation because why the hell not? And I also can't forget to mention the very poor chemistry between Chris Hemsworth and Natalie Portman. If their chemistry didn't work in the first movie, it sure as hell wasn't going to work in this one either. And here's the thing, I think Natalie Portman is a magnificent actress, but when I heard that she didn't even want to be in this movie, I couldn't say I was surprised because I could just really tell that there were some certain scenes where she looked so bored out of her mind or she just looked like she would just rather be somewhere else. If there's one thing that I liked about this movie, it was just the Thor-Loki relationship. That's like the only saving grace of this entire movie. Everything else is just completely forgettable or just very tedious, and let's just hope I never have to watch this ever again. But anyways, moving on. Next, I have the Emoji Movie. The Emoji Movie, okay, I don't really feel like I have to say much. It's just one of the most dumbest, most pointless movies ever made. Whoever thought it was a good idea to make a movie about emojis deserves to be slapped because how could you make emojis interesting when they're just, you know, I have nothing else to say other than fuck this movie, so let's just get this shit over with and just move on. Next, I have The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Now, most of you guys already know that I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, always have been and always will be. But when it comes to The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I do not like this movie at all. I wasn't really a fan of the first one either, but at least it had some things that were a bit tolerable to a certain extent. That this was nothing but a massive clusterfuck. There were just way too many things going on at once where it's just so hard to even comprehend of what they were trying to go for in this film. Whether if it's trying to go all in with the Peter Parker parents subplot, which really does nothing for the movie at all because like what I said, cut that off the film and it wouldn't make a difference because it was just very uninteresting and it leads to nothing. Or having Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker being together, not being together, being together, not being together. It's like, make up your fucking mind. And even having all the villains in this movie being absolutely pitiful, from Paul Giamatti's Rhino to Jamie Foxx's Electro, who's basically Jim Carrey's the Riddler from Batman Forever, and even having Dandy Han, who plays a very shitty version of the Green Goblin to the point where he looks like an ugly leprechaun, with The Amazing Spider-Man 2 being packed with having so many subplots that are just so useless and unnecessary, is why this movie resulted to being a sloppy, bloated, inconsistent mess that it led to The Amazing Spider-Man 3 being canceled. But overall, I am not a fan of this movie in the slightest way possible, and I probably will never watch it again, and let's just hope I never have to. But anyways, moving on. And last and very least, the 2017 All Eyes on Me movie. Oh my god, not this fucking piece of shit. As a Tupac fan, I gotta say, this movie is a fucking disgrace to Tupac's legacy. Like, I really want to bitch slap all the people who thought this was a good idea to make a shitty Tupac biopic. I don't even know where to begin. This movie just really failed to focus on all the important parts of Tupac's life, and because it was just nothing but a sloppy, choppy, just oh my god, it's so hard for me to even describe how bad it is. They left out all the important aspects that happened in Tupac's life, and they just get so many things wrong that never actually happened. Hell, even Jada Pinkett Smith was very outspoken about her disapproval of the movie, because anybody who's a Tupac fan like me already knows that her and Pac were super close friends ever since childhood, so it makes sense of why she was very pissed off at the movie. And look, nothing against the actor who played Tupac. I think his name is Demetrius Shipp Jr., but I just could not take him seriously because I feel like he really failed to capture like the charismatic part about Tupac's personality, and it's just I'm sorry, I just could not take him seriously at all. But anyways, this movie just annoys the shit out of me. It's just really bad. I honestly never will watch it ever again because it is just so fucking pitiful. If y'all want to see a real Tupac movie, then I suggest you go watch Tupac Resurrection, because that's the only like true and most accurate Tupac movie.